Hi, my little loves. How are you all doing out there? I'm going to jump straight into why some people find it difficult to get out of a relationship that is painful to them. Now, there's lots of different reasons why some people will find it more difficult than others to be able to make a break from a relationship that they know is causing them distress, pain, suffering. But for the benefit of this video, we're going to talk about when somebody goes into what I call Pollyanna Syndrome. Now, Pollyanna Syndrome is when somebody is incapable of being able to pull forward all the bad and all the negative and all the unhealthy stuff that has happened in a relationship and goes into romanticizing. They essentially have a pair of rose-tinted spectacles on and view the relationship and the person in a very fluffy kind of way. And what that does is it compounds that person to feel even worse about ending the relationship or getting out of the relationship, because they're terrified they're going to be making a mistake, they're terrified that they might be getting it wrong, and they're only seeing what is really good about this person. Now, I want to tell you about why that happens. My experience, because I always self-disclose, as you know, people, was that once upon a time, and I was, by the way, that person that was in a relationship that was incredibly toxic, that was violent, that was abusive. I was being lied to consistently. I was being abandoned and left with my 2 young children. The end result was I was lying in bed with 2 black eyes, a broken jaw, broken ribs, beyond anything. And that had been going on for years, but I'd never been able to get in touch with the anger and remove myself from that relationship fully. Now, the reason why was because I fell into empathy for the partner at the time. I would bring about his past and his suffering and feel sorry for him for the kind of childhood that he had, and I would focus in on all the great times that we had and all the wonderful attributes about him, rather than actually look at what was happening, which was I was a shell. I was screwed. Now look, I'm not telling you that I was a complete victim within this, because I had my part, but that's another topic. Why was I staying in a relationship that was destroying me and him, I might add? Now, Pollyanna Syndrome is this ability, like I've said, to be able to just hone in and focus on all that is good. It's almost like a sense of denial, right? It shields you from making sane, healthy decisions. It shields you from taking steps to be able to honour your worth and value yourself as a human being. But where did it come from? Well, for me, where it came from, and for most of my clients, it came from a situation or an experience that happened way back in my childhood. Now, back in my childhood, my external surroundings were traumatic. There was situations. I'd lost my mum and dad very early on in my life, and I was then subsequently being abused by my legal guardian, who was my half-brother. Now, at the age of 12, my little adolescent mind could not be able to cope with seeing that level of trauma and tragedy and suffering without going into complete and utter meltdown. So my ego and my nervous system did what it was designed to do. It kept me alive. It kept me safe. And how it enabled me to do that was to move away from looking at what the reality was of going on in my situation, because if I focused there and really looked at that, I wouldn't be here now. So I adapted a trauma response behavior that enabled me to focus in on good stuff and avoid and distract and fantasize. And that kept me alive. That kept me sane to an extent. And I continued to do that. I continued to minimize the bad stuff so that I was able to be able to cope and live my life relatively non-suicidally, right? Now, that's all well and good, and that really, really did serve as a huge survival skill back then. But as an adult, as a grown woman, as a mother, and as a partner, when somebody is emptying your bank account or breaking your ribs or abandoning you for weeks on end, leaving you with 2 very small children, you need to be able to see that, because you need to be able to really feel the full force of what one person's actions is having on your mental and emotional well-being. Because if you don't, if you only focus on the times that were good, or he doesn't mean it because, you know, this is just how he was never shown love as a kid, then ultimately who's going to suffer and continue to be abused is you. So if we can remember that this is a trauma response, and many of my clients come to me with this and they say, you know, I just can't seem to let go of this relationship, or I can't seem to get out of this relationship, and they start to, you know, tell me about this relationship, and I have to stop them in their tracks and say, are you aware that you are painting a picture that is nothing like the actual one that you are experiencing? The one that you're describing to me sounds lovely, and I can well imagine why you would want to hang around in it, but it's not the truth. It's just your response to it. It's your inability to be able to let go, absolutely, because, or for one, you're frightened of the letting go process and being on your own and what that might represent. But 2, because you've been designed and conditioned to only focus on what was being good. And in this instance, it's biting you on the backside. So how do we go through this? How do we get somebody to be able to look at things not cynically, not pessimistically, but realistically, where we sit and we do a reality check? I teach them about the Pollyanna Syndrome that they are subsequently observing their life from, and we look at why and where that has come from, and how that did serve then and how that's not serving now. And we open it up and look at how that may have played out in many different areas of this person's life, and therefore had a massive impact on how they behave. Are they people pleasers, caretakers, whatever that looks like? We're able to systematically be able to look at something from a realistic perspective and make healthy choices, whilst at the same time being able to work on that person's sense of value, sense of self-esteem, and sense of worth that enables them to know that they deserve more than this. So like I said, it's not just something that is wrong with you or a failing. You had to have that within you before. It kept you alive, my darlings. It kept you sane. It kept you being able to get through life and get you to where you are today. But those things that kept you alive then are not working for you now. And they're disabling you from being able to rightfully place responsibility at the right person's door and getting in touch with anger that you don't deserve to be treated like this. And when you're able to be able to view it and look at it from this angle, it makes making a decision as to what your next move should be that much easier. You're not holding on to a fantasy. You're not crumbling inside, just filled with sadness about what an absolute loss this would be to not have this person in my life. You're able to still be sad, to still know it's a loss, but absolutely have clarity that this is the right thing to do for you. And if you have got out of a relationship and you are doing that, and it is keeping you holding on mentally and emotionally, and you are unable to have closure and move forward, we use the same methods again. We come out of fantasy, we come out of seeing the good bits, of which there were probably far less than you are fantasizing about, and help you get to a place of honest perspective. I hope this helps. I hope this has informed you and helped you in why perhaps we do the certain things that we do. And it's okay. We've learned a certain way. Now we're going to be taught how to do things differently in order to be able to serve us for who we are today. Because you're no longer a defenseless little child or a voiceless adolescent. You are a grown woman or man who absolutely has a voice and has the right to be treated with respect, love and consideration. And that is what I help my clients be able to acknowledge and get in touch with. It is your birthright. Take care.